All right, time for an update and forecast for the various wildfires burning across California. This has been part of a pattern that's really picked up over the last few days where we had strong northerly winds around 30 to 40 miles per hour. Also some low relative humidity around 5 to 15%. So that combined with the fact that we had a pretty wet winter, there's a lot of grass out there, and then the grass dries very quickly. We've had some fires popping up, and actually some new ones to talk about throughout the day today. This video that I've been showing right here is from our newest fire, or one of the newer ones, the Sites fire. You can see how many aircraft are on that right now. You can actually also see it from space. This is something that wasn't in the video yesterday. I was talking about how, it's actually good news on some of the fires that we're not seeing a lot of smoke, but looks like the Sites fire is pretty active right now. So if you're in the Bay Area and you see some smoke throughout the day today, that's most likely the fire that it's coming from. So let's just get into it. Let's look at the Sites fire first here. That one is now over 10,000 acres, although I believe that number is pretty old because, let's see, last updated, I'm not sure when that was last updated, maybe 4 hours ago, they said 10,000 acres, but it looks like based on the live shots, it's still pretty active right now, so most likely we're going to see that number come up. There are also some evacuation warnings and orders in place. I don't really go through those in my videos just because by the time you're watching this, they might change, but definitely good to stay updated on those. I think this map is interesting to look at for the Sites fire because you can see where the previous fire perimeter was, and then you can see where those red dots are. That represents where some of the newer growth has been. First thing I notice is that there's a lot of new growth, so it's moving fairly quickly, which makes sense if you have winds blowing around 30 to 40 miles per hour. Grass fires can spread very quickly as well. Then you also have these canyons that have been funneling the northerly winds. I heard Zeke Lunder talking about that. And then these orange dots are the structures. So that's maybe one piece of good news, is at least the fire, because of the northerly winds, seems to be moving away from the largest amount of structures. But it does look like we have some of those orange dots down on the southern edge of the fire right now. So definitely some property at risk, and that also makes sense why we have evacuation orders in place. Now, one thing I'm going to show, but I always do a little disclaimer. What I'm about to show usually over-exaggerates where the fire is, but I do like to look at it because it gives us a general idea of the direction it's moving. And by no means has everything underneath this burnt, but it interestingly looks like the northern edge of the fire is still fairly active. So actually the whole northern, eastern, and southern edge. So just a lot of growth on this fire at the moment. Although, again, not everywhere right there is actually seeing growth, but that's pretty good indication that this fire is active. And the reason for that is it stayed very dry overnight. Poor humidity recoveries, that's what you call it. There's still the red flag warning. That's in place until noon today. I'm going to be kind of interested to see if they end up extending this because it's going to be really dry this afternoon. The reason why they're having it expire at noon is because those northerly winds that have been responsible for a lot of the fast fire growth over the last few days, those are finally starting to kind of taper off, and I'll get into why in a bit. But just want to show the wind direction. So this is our fire location right there. I took the lat lawn from the CAL FIRE website and then put it into here so we could see. It does look like those winds are still coming from the north. And then if we want to look at the weather forecast, pretty warm today, mid 80s, although that's probably about average for this time of the year, or even maybe below average. It won't be as windy as yesterday, although we'll still have some gusts over 20-25 miles per hour, so that can certainly lead to some fast growth. It does look like the wind direction the winds are changing direction throughout the day, though. Now, this may just be for the local spot that I picked, so there's probably going to be some variation in nuances depending on topography. But look how it's all northerly throughout the first half of the day, and then as you get into the afternoon, it shifts almost towards an easterly wind. So that'll have some impacts on the direction of fire spread. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. And then notice the magnitude not as high as the winds were yesterday. So that's at least some good news. Maybe where the bad news comes in is it's very dry out there this afternoon. Relative humidity in the teens. And then tonight, it's not going to go up all that much. It stays pretty dry overnight. So that's what I mean by poor relative humidity recoveries. Not all that much moisture going back into our fuels. So that can allow some fire activity to continue overnight. And then fuels stay dry even in the morning, so then you can have active fire behavior even at 7, 8 in the morning, or what it is right now, 10:30. So that's the sites fire. Another one that I've been looking at is the Aero fire. I could zoom out so you could see roughly where it is. Looks like it's Calaveras and Tuolumne counties. A lot of evacuation orders for this one. See some aircraft flying around on this one as well. Recent numbers show acres 5,425 and 20% containment. And new incident team, the thing I wanted to show. This is a photo from it yesterday. That's 4:21 p.m. yesterday afternoon. It's a pretty good smoke plume coming off of that one. What I want to see is if there's any activity on the Aero fire, any recent hotspots. So, believe it would be, not really seeing much on this map. So maybe that's some good news. Maybe the satellites just aren't picking up on it. I believe it would be right about there, though. Hard to tell on that map. So, no news is good news on that front since we can't see any detections. So we're just going to come back here. And I think that's about all we can say for the Aero fire at the moment. I guess we could also look here. Yeah, not seeing much smoke coming up in that direction. It really looks like it's the sites fire that is the most active right now. Now on the Aero fire, that was the latitude and longitude. I put that in, got our weather forecast for there. It looks like pretty warm today, mid-80s. Winds this afternoon should be gusting over 20 miles per hour, but not as windy as yesterday. But just like the sites fire and really all of California, exceptionally dry this afternoon. Relative humidity dropping down into the teens, and there wasn't that great of a recovery last night. So the reason we're so dry and the reason we had these winds over the last few days all has to do with this trough right here that moved through the Pacific Northwest. You see how those lines get so close together right here? Those are isobars, lines of constant pressure. And the closer those are, the faster your winds are going to be. So that trough has been moving through, but the good news is that today it's going to be moving off and out of California. And then when you look at what happens, those lines get a lot farther apart, meaning our winds are going to be calming down. And that is why the red flag warning expires at noon today. So the other thing that those winds were doing, since they were coming from the north, instead of, like a nice wind bringing some moisture in from the ocean, those northerly winds or northeasterly winds bring in drier air from inland areas. And that's why when we look at our relative humidity values, they're in the teens, or in some cases I was even seeing some single digits out there. So just a couple other fires that are going on. We have the Post fire. That's over 15,000 acres, 24% containment. Looks like there are still some evacuation orders on that. Let's see if we can see if there's any smoke coming off of it. And getting a sneak peek at all my weather links. Oh, I guess that one doesn't want to work right now. So we'll just leave it at this. Right there. Post fire. Looks like there's some helicopters on it right now. So by that indication, it seems like it would still be active, but we're not able to really get that good of an idea unless we go to Cal Topo. Come down here. Post fire. Let's see. All satellites. Modus and Veers. Not seeing any current detections. Remember on the other fire when we had those big red boxes pop up? If we were seeing current detections, those would be popping up on here as well. So again, I'm not going to say that the fire is not active right now because we're only as good as the information we can find, but based on that information, it seems like conditions have been improving there, especially compared to previous days. And then finally, We have the point fire. That is, I'll zoom out so you can see roughly where it is. Zooming up here, and actually looks like we have a photo on that one, but I already clicked that photo. It wasn't a great shot. 1,200 acres, 40% containment. So seeing that number come up, pretty good news there. And this actually shows where the containment is. Looks like it's mostly on the northwestern edge of the fire. Although when we looked at the satellite imagery earlier, it didn't look like there was a whole lot of smoke coming off of this. As with all of the fires, though, we're going to be keeping a close eye on them as we get into the afternoon, because while the winds aren't going to be as strong as previous days, it's definitely still dry out there. It's warm out there, so the grasses are dry as well. Keep checking on any evacuation orders if you live near these fires. One of the main things I always look at is what structures might be threatened, but it is also good to remember that these fires are also providing some benefits to the ecosystem as well, and whatever fuel burns right now is not going to still be around at the peak of fire season when everything's much drier and fire conditions are even more dangerous than the last few days. So, some of these fires, like the Hernandez fire on the Central Coast not too long ago, or over the last few days, didn't take out any structures and did some good fire on about 600 acres. So that ended up being one of those fires that is beneficial. What happens on some of these fires burning right now is still kind of up in the air, but that's why we're going to be following them. So hopefully this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.